So hello everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to turn your off-road mower into pretty much a locked differential. Well, it's more of a limited slip differential. So we should all know how a locked diff works. It connects both axles solidly, so they both turn at the same time. The problem that can create is you try and turn around a corner and they're trying to turn at the same time, so it's harder to turn. And that can cause problems in a mud hole, because you might not make a corner and you might have to stop, to reverse, to try again. And at that point you could get stuck from stopping in the mud. So, a poor man's version of a limited slip diff, so that's your pin there, little spider gears, and that all just sits nicely in your diff like that. These are free floating. When one of your tires is spinning, it doesn't matter which one and in which direction, these will spin opposite directions from each other. So to make it a limited slip diff, we want to make them be able to turn, but we want them to be hard to turn. So what I've seen some people do is they get a valve spring from like an engine, just a lawnmower or a go-kart engine, and that goes on there, and then you have to compress it to get it in. So now these are a bit harder to turn in each direction. So those tires want to turn at the same speed if there's only a little bit of, like, you can have a little bit of slippage, right? But I was like, well, those springs aren't very strong. You can compress them by hand fairly easily. And I've seen the video of the guy doing it. I forgot the YouTuber, sorry. And you could physically see that they weren't spinning properly, and like, you know, that's gonna cause more friction in one direction than the other because of how that is. And I really didn't see it as being the ideal option. So I'm like, what is something small, compact, cheap, that I can easily get my hands on that'll fit perfectly? Spring washers. Extremely strong to compress, and they're the perfect fit over if you get the right size. So these are the part that I have, and I got a couple of spring washers. I got some flat spacer washers so I can adjust how many I want in this to adjust how tight I want them. So that'll adjust how strong my LSD is. I've also got the spacer, which is out of another transmission, just to do it. And to avoid metal on metal contact in some places and to make it a bit smoother, I've just got these little fabric washers because I wanted something that wouldn't degrade in oil, and I wanted something that wouldn't get destroyed with too much heat. And so I decided on going with what I could find, some fabric washers. So I'll put this LSD together and show you how it works. So as you can see, guys, I've got it in the vise just because it's so tight to try and compress. I had a G-clamp on the top of it so I could move it top a little bit, bottom a little bit, top a bit, so it doesn't jam up. Made sure the pin is sticking out equal amounts on both sides, and I've put grease on it because I'm not going to be able to get that ball gear where I want it. I'm only going to be able to get it on most of the way. And then once I release that, I'm going to have to like hit that through with a hammer or something. But we can see what I've done here. So I've got the gear just goes against the ball gear, so those are just metal on metal. And then I've got the fabric washers on the ends. That one's there just because I ran out of spacer washers. So I've got two spacer washers because they're thin so they can bend. spring washer, which is pretty much completely compressed at this point, 2 spacer washers, my spacer, and alternating 2 spacer washers, and that, because that's all I had. And so that is going to be a lot stronger than if I tried to use a valve spring. So I'll slide it all together and show you how it is. So guys, as you can see, I've got that all in the ball gear, and those are a lot harder to turn. Like, I can just turn them, and when those are spinning faster, that'll just add up and add up. So that will make it a lot better off-road. Another thing I will mention is I have cut the ends off the axles. Some people weld a bead around there to make it low profile, but I figured I could get away with just cutting off the end, but leave enough material for those circlips to still grab, and for that to not come off, because otherwise those go too far in and will hit on any of the spaces you have. So long as your spaces aren't too wide, this will allow it to just fit. Otherwise you might have to weld it, which I didn't want to do, just in case I wanted to change these in future. So when you're putting your transmission back together, make sure you pack it all full of grease, and then I just use engine oil. Doesn't really matter too much on the thickness. If you're using thinner oil like 1030 or something, or 1540, then you kind of really want grease, because this is all under very heavy load. If you're using like gear oil, which is probably the best, which is 1890, you don't have to worry about the grease as much, but the grease helps thicken up the oil, and it helps lubricate it a lot better. When it's running, you'll find that it'll mix, and it'll come out more as a sludge, which when it heats up, it'll turn a lot more liquidy, but grease is what these will come with a lot of the times, and that's good for low speed, but I like adding oil as it makes it turn into a liquid and can actually get into all the little crevices that it needs to. So this limited slip diff, I've pulled a key out of one of the axles and tried to go backwards and forwards. It thinks about moving, but it's really not strong enough, so if you're gonna do it yourself, I would stack at least like 3 spring washers with each other to make it 3 times as strong before you'll probably find it doing anything. So next time I have my transmission apart, I'm going to be modifying it and adding a lot more spring washers, and I'll probably make a part 2 to this video. Maybe I'll show some video of us mudding for the end of the video, why not?